He used to sit at the edge of the dining table, eyes fixed on the newspaper, mouth tight, calloused hands around a chipped teacup, while his son, small, bright-eyed, and eager, waited for a word that never came. Not a "well done," not a "how was your day," not even a smile. And over the years, that boy, whose name was Arav, stopped waiting. He stopped asking questions, stopped drawing pictures to show his father, stopped leaving his test papers on the counter, hoping they'd be noticed. By the time he turned 16, he had already built a story in his head. My father doesn't care. He doesn't love me. He never did. And when Arav left home at 19 for college, he didn't cry. He packed quietly, walked past his father, sitting in that same spot with the same teacup, and only paused long enough to whisper a dry goodbye. His father didn't look up, and so the silence became final. Years passed. Arav built a life in the city, a job, an apartment, friends who laughed loudly, dinners that ended with hugs and warmth, and yet, somewhere deep in the parts of him he didn't often visit, there remained an ache he never touched, something like an old book he refused to open. One day, in the middle of a particularly rainy afternoon, his phone rang. It was his mother. Her voice trembled. "Your father's in the hospital." She didn't ask him to come. She knew she didn't have to. That night, Arav stood outside the hospital room, heart confused, mind bracing for the same silence. But what he saw through the glass made his chest tighten. His father, older and smaller than he remembered, was not sipping tea or reading a paper. He was lying still. Tubes, machines, fragile breaths. It didn't look like the man he had hated. It looked like a boy trying to hold on. Arav walked in, sat down. No words, just memories louder than any machine beep. He didn't know why he reached for the bedside drawer, maybe to distract himself, maybe just to fidget. But what he found there changed everything. A wooden box, old, locked, but not heavy. Inside, carefully bundled with string, were 27 letters, all addressed to him, one for each year he had lived. The first was dated the day he was born. The last, just a week ago. His hand shook as he opened the first one. "Dear Arav, you won't understand this yet, but I've never been more afraid in my life. Holding you was like holding the whole world. I didn't speak much today. I didn't know how to say it. But I hope someday you'll feel it in how I held you." Tears blurred the ink before he could finish. He opened another. "You asked me today if I was proud of your school drawing." I nodded. You looked away. I should have said yes out loud. I wanted to. But my father never said it to me, and somehow the words felt stuck in my chest. "I'm sorry." Another one. "You got first prize. I pretended to be annoyed when your mother made a big deal of it." Truth? I cried later in the shed, alone, because I didn't know how to say I was proud without it sounding weak. Each letter was a world, a moment Arav had lived and misread, a silence he had filled with resentment, never knowing it was packed with words that couldn't leave his father's lips. His father had been speaking, just not out loud, through letters, through small acts, through presence, even when the words failed. By the time Arav reached the final letter, his cheeks were soaked. "Dear Arav, I don't know if I'll still be here when you read this. If I'm not, know this. I failed in many ways. I thought being strong meant being quiet. I thought love didn't need to be said, just shown. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe sons need to hear it. So let me say it now, even if it's late. I love you. I always did, and I always will. Araf couldn't breathe. The tears didn't sting any more. They healed. He reached for his father's hand, still warm, still there, and for the first time, he spoke. I got your letters, Dad. No reply, just a slow, tired blink. But it was enough. He stayed by his father's side for the next 2 days, held his hand through the nights, read every single letter aloud, one by one, voice cracking but steady, and just before the last line of the last letter, his father took one last breath, silent, gentle, like a page closing. He didn't get to hear the end, but something told Arav he already knew. At the funeral, Arav stood in front of a small crowd and said, "My father never told me he loved me, not with his voice, but he spent 27 years trying to say it the only way he knew how." And when he walked back to his seat, a young boy in the crowd reached for his own father's hand. Sometimes the loudest love is the quietest. Sometimes the people we think abandoned us were actually fighting their own battle with words, with fear, with themselves. This is not just a story about fathers and sons. It's about all of us who have misjudged someone's silence. About the people who didn't know how to say, "I love you," but still tried in their own broken, quiet way. So if someone in your life has been silent for too long, maybe don't just listen to what they say. Listen for what they've tried to say, but never could. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to this channel for more stories that don't just entertain, they heal.